Hello! And welcome. This is Brand New Smith live from the Forbidden Library. And today we're reading more YA. Letters in the Attic. Hello Luke, hello Void, hello Red Candy Guy. Hello, this is the third stream in back-to-back viewing. I've started watching today. Nice! Big stream day for you, Void. Many people you are supporting today. Wonderful. Hello, Red Candy Guy. Things are going good. Bring out the Earl Grey and the Jammy Dodgers. It's Bryony Rose Smith, but she hates Earl Grey. Get me a different tea. Get the English breakfast out, not the Earl Grey. It's me. It is Luke. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. And it's time. It's time. It's time for the recap. I need to remember. We're only 48% of the way through this book. Hello, Jabba Hop. Welcome. Welcome. Only 46 or 48? 48. Yeah, I was right the first time. 48% of the way through this book. And we're on the 4th stream of it already. So this is going to take at least 8. First it was Trails and Zero stream, then it was the same stream I did Limbers, and now you're reading. So I wasn't prepared for this. Oh no, big stream day. Time for some letters in the attic. Some animated bird letters. Why does that sound wrong somehow? Oh lordy. Yes, so it's we're gonna be going through this one a lot, I feel like. So, recap. Cammy has moved to Green Peaks that was somewhere in America, and I don't remember what state in America it said it was in, but it was in America, and she moved from one place in America to another place in America for her senior year of high school because her dad did some naughty drunk driving and ended up killing a few people in the town, and then like her mum and her got horrible abusive texts and stuff over it, so they moved here to where like her mum's sister lives to like start a new life. Minnesota? It could have been Minnesota. I have no idea. The town's called Green Peaks. I'm not sure the town actually exists, but the state existed. I just don't remember what state it was. We could go back to chapter 1 to check. That was the one that actually said it. Shall I do it? No. I need the chapter select. Table of contents. That's what we need. Chapter 1. So they went from Colorado to Wyoming. They went from Colorado to Wyoming. That's where they went from. 16? Chapter 16. That's what we're on. Yeah, chapter 16. That's what we're on. Yeah. Let's not forget where we were. Anyway, so they went from Colorado to Wyoming and went to a town called Green Peaks, which is a nice tiny weeny baby town, Wyoming, which we all know doesn't exist. Ah, I see. That's something I believe from the American fiction, is it? From my American TV shows, I thought it was real, but apparently it was a lie. Yes. So they moved there to get a fresh start. She started school, didn't think she was going to make any friends, but actually made quite a few friends. They now live in... Oh, the Tea Fairy is here! Thank you, Tea Fairy. Appreciate you. Yay. The Tea Fairy has brought me some green tea. Anyway. Yes. So she makes some friends, she joins the art club, everything's good. The house they live in is this one that's kind of in a... It theoretically has been abandoned for 100 years, but it has been surprisingly upkept. It's like basically a mansion on the end of town surrounded by the woods. She later finds out these woods are called the Cursed Woods, and every time she goes outside she feels like someone's watching her from the woods. While she is... The Tooth Fairy, no, the Tea Fairy, much better than the Tooth Fairy. As much as the Tooth Fairy does pay you, which is nice, the Tea Fairy brings me teas, so, you know, tea. When she explores her house, she goes into the attic and finds a little table with a letter on it. And it's a love letter. Oh, no, it's Ohio that doesn't exist? Ah, I see. Ohio doesn't exist. So Wyoming exists, but Ohio doesn't exist. Or do they both not exist? And you actually have, like, I don't know, would it be 48 states, not 50? Was it 51? I don't know. And it's a love letter. And she's like, oh, wouldn't it be nice if this love letter was for me? And then she goes up another night and it's like, oh, the love letter is for me. And then she starts communicating with this would-be lover who lives in the woods. Apparently, he comes from a magical community who got chased out years ago. They do eventually meet face to face, and his name is Zeke, which is Ezekiel is his full name. 49. I see. I'm pretty sure it's 50 states. Wasn't it you guys have 50 stars or whatever? I'll admit, actually, I only know that because of the movie 51st State. Because the joke was, England ain't nothing but the 51st State. That was the joke. Anyway, that's a different thing. And then eventually, she tries to keep her, like, separate life so that... I love that movie too, it's so good. The US has 40 states, Briny. Do they? I don't think that's right. I'm pretty sure it's 50. Pretty sure. So she has a lot of fun, like, trying to balance out this boyfriend in the woods and her normal life. Because she communicates with the boyfriend in the woods at night via throwing letters through her window. And then he sends, like, little letter birds to her. I would never lie to you. Sus. But she keeps losing sleep over it, and then her other life is suffering. Eventually, they do actually meet up face to face, and eventually she does go to see his family, in which she, like, takes part in, like, a ritual that shows her visions of the past, of the people getting chased out and things like that. And now she's back at home right after that ritual, like, having all these visions, so. No, you never. I trust Luke. Out of all of you, I probably trust Luke the best. I'm pretty sure it's 50. Do they play baseball, though? I don't think they do. They did have, like, a huge fire that theoretically you should have been able to see, but obviously you couldn't because they have magical cloaking technology. So it's fine. They can do whatever they want. Yeah, they had a big bonfire. And magical vision time. And now she's at home in chapter 16. Oh yeah, and there was a girl who's gone missing. I feel like that's an important topic. No one she particularly knows, but the rumors are abound. So I feel like that is important. Because the cover says there's going to be a serial killer, but we're nearly halfway through and there's no serial killer yet. So let's go! Serial killer ho! Chapter 16. I slept fitfully that night. My dreams a swirl of painted faces, dancing fires, and screams of people I knew to be dead. I didn't remember Zeke taking me home. I couldn't remember anything after June quenched the fire and absorbed whatever magic had writhed within it. There was only a breath of a memory, warm hands easing me into a bed before lightly brushing the hair out of my face. Sleep well, Cammy. Then there was a gentle pressure on my hand, as if something thin and folded was pressed into it. I tossed back the comforter and searched through the blankets. There, under my pillow, I found the latest letter. The old paper was folded not into a bird this time, but was rounded at the bottom with 3 uneven spikes pointing at the top. A flame. Magical boyfriend and his family, mysterious disappearances in small towns, teenage angst. All this seems familiar. It is a YA book. It is very much a YA book by the numbers, and it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. Get back to our teenage girl roots. Mid-morning sunlight streamed through the open curtains. I glanced out at the trees before leaning back and opening it to read. Good morning, beautiful. I hope you slept well after the adventure you had last night. I have to say, you are the strongest and bravest young woman I have ever met. You continue to astound me. Try to get some rest today. You'll need some time to recover, but after last night's proceedings, I think it's safe to say you can handle almost anything. I'll be waiting in the woods when you get out of school on Monday. Until then, smiley face. I guess when you're writing it, it's hard to do emojis. You got to do your own emoji. Love Z. Oh, hello, Boris. Welcome. It's only, yeah, probably. I mean, there's already been a fair bit of teen angst, but I think it's been very justifiable teen angst. So she's working through, like, the death of her dad and being moved to another area, and then, like, it's the last year before college. Bless her little cotton socks. So much going on. I smiled and hugged his words to my chest. I astounded him. Had anyone ever thought of me as astounding? Before I met Zeke, I'd been the most boring teenager on the planet. No one in their right mind would ever call me special, but now? Now I was secretly dating a witch who lived off the grid, within a coven in the forest concealed by enchantments. Maybe dating wasn't the right word. We hadn't even kissed, for goodness sake, but it had been clear from the beginning that this relationship would be something more than friendship. It was probably my fault we hadn't progressed into something more yet. I wouldn't let myself feel guilty for wanting to take things slow. I needed to let my mind handle one new thing at a time. First, that magic existed. Second, that there was a group of witches hiding out in the wilderness a few miles from my town. Lastly, that one of those witches somehow held feelings for me, of all people. A girl could only handle so much at once. Bless. I thought back to everything I'd witnessed the previous night. It had been shocking, overwhelming, but I had handled it. And perhaps that was why Zeke thought I was astounding. I hadn't turned away from him and run screaming into the woods after all was said and done. I'd held my own, watched those horrific visions along with everyone else. It's very well written as a teen's thought process, isn't it? It's so good. I could almost feel the trace of magic that had flowed through my veins, a ghost of the power that had dominated the ceremony. It was like a buzz, a weird magical hangover or something. I felt giddy and light, and I knew I was probably smiling like an idiot as I emerged from my bed and began dressing for the day. Girls running and screaming to the woods whenever they see me. I don't even live in the woods. The woods just materializes everywhere I am. Good morning, I sang lightly, cruising past her. No, wait. I skipped a bit. The stupid grin was still plastered on my face as I slipped down the stairs and glided into the kitchen. My mum was seated at the bar, a mug of coffee in one hand and a book in the other. Good morning, I sang lightly, cruising past her. I hunted into the cabinets for my water boiler. Water boiler, why? Kettle! It's a kettle! Call it a kettle! It's a kettle! And favourite mug before brewing tea. Did I really need caffeine in my already jittery state? Probably not. Then have a uncaffeinated tea. There's plenty of varieties. Pun intended. Probably not. But I was doing what I wanted to do these days. I heard the book and coffee mug as they were set carefully down on the breakfast bar. I could feel my mum's eyes as she stared at my back, possibly wondering what euphoric creature had possessed her daughter. I tried to rein in my smile before turning to her. Did you have a good evening? I asked. Water boiler kettle. It's a water heater. No, it's all a kettle. It's a kettle. Kettle. If it's a device specifically made to boil water, it's a kettle. Oh, hello, Zekin. Knock, knock. Sorry to interrupt. Who might you be? My name is Barney Mo Smith, and we're live from the Forbidden Library, and we are reading books. Who are you? She eyed me suspiciously and cocked her head slightly. Obviously, I was the one who had the good evening. Her expression was too funny. I couldn't stop myself from grinning. Pot, No. A pot is not specifically designed to boil water. That is one of its functions, but it is not specifically designed to do that. It is specifically designed to heat whatever is in it. However, a kettle is specifically designed to heat water. Only water. Just water. So it's a kettle. Kettle. I'm Zach, I was opening random doors and found yourself here. Wonderful! Make yourself comfy and listen to a book if you wish. Or open another door. Whatever makes you happy. Her expression was too funny and I couldn't stop myself grinning again. Yeah, she said slowly. Her eyes were narrowed slightly, but I couldn't imagine what she could be upset about this early in the morning. I take it you had a good time with Natalie last night? Oh my god, is her mum gonna be like, is my daughter gay? Are they dating? Natalie? I racked my brain as I tried to figure out what she was talking about. Oh right, Natalie and I had gone to the movies last night, and that was why I was gotten home late. My eyes widened before I hurried to catch up, nodding my head a little too enthusiastically in my attempt to appear like everything was normal. Ah, very nice second, thank you. You like my stream stick? Thank you. I put chocolate milk in my kettle, though. You're a heathen, Void. I'm sorry. That would break most kettles, though. Bleh. Oh, yeah, we had a great time. She was still looking at me skeptically, and I turned around again as my water came to a boil. Darn my horrible lying skills! She absolutely knew something was up. Bro, even if you have good lying skills, your mum will still know. She will still know. You want hot chocolate, though? That is my one permission you have to... If you want to heat up milk, you have my permission to do so in a microwave. Don't warm up your words. Don't warm up your water for a cup of tea in the microwave, but you can warm up your milk in the microwave for your hot chocolate. You have my permission for that. Huh, she said casually, and I heard the mug grate across the bar's surface before she raised it again to her lips. That's interesting, because I ran into her last night at GG's Oil last night. I ran into her at GG Oils last night. I froze, my hands clutching at the steaming boiler an inch from the cup. Crap. She told me to tell you to feel better. Ah! Oh no! We're caught! I thought milk went in the kettle, but tea went in the microwave. No, other way around. And even if she doesn't know, she'll pretend to know. Yes. Your mum will, like, freak you out. She'll be like, I know all the things. Or if I pretend to know, you will tell me. I used a microwave for my water for tea. Then I bought a proper kettle. Good. You leveled up. Why did we have to live in a town with only one gas station? A town so small that it was nearly impossible not to run into everyone you know on a daily basis! How was a girl supposed to keep any secrets around here? It looks to me like you're feeling much better. She sipped at her coffee loudly, obnoxiously. Holding my breath, I set the boiler carefully on the countertop and turned to face her. Half of her face was concealed by the coffee mug, but she had one eyebrow raised, and her eyes pinned me with a stare that screamed, Gotcha! I was sure my own face resembled a deer in headlights. We've been caught! I'm sorry. I mumbled. I'm sorry, just the image I have in my face of this is like... I'm sorry. It was rare that I lied to my mother, and even more rare for me to get caught. How was this conversation supposed to go? Perhaps I should get on my knees and beg for forgiveness now. Lowering the mug at last, her lips were pressed together as if she were trying not to smile. She was smug, I realized, as if catching me in a lie was an impossible feat. But Super Mum held victory. Oh, Mum, I wasn't expecting the Spanish Inquisition! Correct. Oh yeah, I was just on my way to buy some pizza. I know what to do with my tea now. Void. We need to keep tea away from you, Void. You just keep... No. Are you going to tell me what you did instead? I pressed my own lips together to hide my smile. Sure, I could tell her exactly where I'd been. In the middle of the cursed woods, meeting a group of magic wielders and participating in an ancient ceremony as my witch boyfriend's little sister came into her birthright. The story sounded so ridiculous in my head, I knew I'd be in even more trouble for trying to tell the truth. But I was exhausted from last night's endeavours, and it was too early in the morning to fabricate another lie anyway. So I stared at her in silence. She brought her arm up to the bar and rested her chin on her knuckles. Were you with a boy? She knows. She knows. My eyes widened a fraction. How does she know that? Because she's your mum. Of course she knows that. She knows everything. My eyes widened a fraction more. Oh wait, I just read that. Super mum indeed. Then again, I was a 17-year-old girl who had ditched her friend and lied to her mum to free her schedule for something else. If I wasn't hanging out with a boy, then I was probably doing something worse. Like drugs. Maybe I should cut my losses and tell her half the truth before she started demanding I pee in a cup. No, Mom, I was doing drugs. I nodded my head once, twice, crossed my fingers that this scrap of truth wouldn't backfire on me, that she wouldn't insist on meeting him and his parents immediately. I wondered who would win the staring match between my mum and Alexandria, if no magic was involved. She removed her hand and used it to take another swig of coffee. I assume you aren't going to tell me his name? The coffee mug couldn't completely hide her smile. Her eyes were down, but I had a feeling they were dancing. I shook my head slightly, knowing she'd catch the movement. After a full minute of hiding behind her mug, she set it down again. Okay. Something very fine, super brainy. No very fine setting for me. Well, I don't want to go in the machine in general. We don't do that. Okay. What did she mean by that? Next time, at least tell me where you're going, please. And I expect you to be home before midnight. I gawked at her, my mouth hanging open. A reprieve? First Zeke's mother and community let us off easy, and now my own mother? Was there something in the air? Perhaps the universe was finally giving me a break after all I had endured the past few months. Whatever the reason, I grabbed onto it like a life vest. Thank you, I choked out. I met her eyes briefly before making my escape, before she changed her mind and began questioning me further. I left the makings of my... You left the tea! This is the second time she's wasted tea. God damn it. I left the makings of my tea behind in a hurry to flee, deciding that caffeine really wouldn't do me any favours in my hyped up state. I'd go back and clean it up later when the coast was clear. Will Smith always told you the parents just don't understand. I know, they just keep sending you to live with your auntie and uncle in Bel Air all the time. I spent the day catching up on homework and studying for the history exam that would be given first thing Monday morning. I texted Natalie and Michael about nothing in particular, enjoying the periodic distraction from schoolwork. And every so often I found myself staring out the window at the trees, wondering what Zeke and his family might be doing, and imagining that I was there with them. No, not the tea! I woke up early Monday morning as though my body knew it was to be a good day. I couldn't wait to jump to it. I was ready for my exam, or as ready as I would ever be. The days of dreading school were behind me. I wasn't the awkward new girl anymore, but a girl with friends, and a clique I felt I actually belonged to. I looked forward to Natalie and Jason's banter, Taylor's quiet smiles, and Carly's dreamy and somewhat amusing demeanour. It was easy to spend 8 hours in an environment I was comfortable in, when I could exchange glances with Natalie behind the teacher's back, and roll my eyes at Jason when he pretended to fall asleep in a particularly boring lecture. I knew those 8 hours would fly by, and then I'd be free to meet Zeke right behind my house. I wondered what he had in store for us today. Would we walk around the woods and talk like we usually did? Or would he take me back to his home? Now that I knew his family didn't want to hex me, I wanted to get to know his sister better, his friends. I wanted to experience more things with him, and finally learn all about the secluded life he had. I tried to focus on my other life as Natalie and I quizzed each other on the drive to school. I filed Zeke away, shoving those thoughts into a locked section of my mind that emitted a smoky, woodsy scent. Later, I would turn the key to that door. Later. 4 hours later, I crammed my book bag into my locker and walked arm in arm to lunch with Natalie. Half of the school day down, and only a few more periods to go. I felt confident I had at least scored a B on my exam, and the rest of the day should have been downhill sailing from there. Then we walked into the cafeteria and my stomach dropped. I could immediately feel the change in the atmosphere. Kids were huddling in groups and whispering rather than laughing and shouting at each other across the lunch tables. There was a weight pressing down on the room. Icy tendrils ran up my spine. Something had happened. Something bad. I exchanged a glance with Natalie, whose eyes were wide. "What's going on?" I whispered. I kept my voice low, mimicking the hushed tones of my classmates and even teachers who were huddling quietly around their own tables. Natalie shrugged her shoulders, and we unlinked our arms. The food line was silent as we accepted our burger and fries, and I thought that lunch lady's eyes were sad as she handed me the meal. Jason motioned to us from across the room, and we hurried to join the rest of our friends. We had barely taken our seats when Jason launched into an explanation. "Another girl's been murdered! Da da da! 50% halfway book. Halfway. And we have done another girl already. My blood ran cold at Jason's words. Another girl, killed only 3 weeks after the disappearance of Heather Reed. We all leaned across the table, mirroring the huddles of students that populated the lunchroom. "Who was it?" Natalie whispered. In my already shocked state, I barely recognized how softly she spoke. My obnoxious, loud friend was gracing us with her rarely used quiet voice. I knew then she was scared. "Jessie York," he breathed. Natalie and Carly gasped. I didn't know this girl, of course, but I'd heard the name York mentioned before. I followed Jason and Taylor's eyes to a group of seniors sitting a few tables away. It was the brainy group, the handful of kids I'd seen eating their lunches absently while they read huge novels under the table. There were no books to be seen now, though a few of the girls appeared to be crying. Counted their number and noticed someone was missing. Hey Bryony, theory question. Do you think protagonist is the only one getting letters in the closet? In the attic? Yes, definitely. Unless Zeke is two-timing her. All I saw when I looked over was another girl's been murdered. Hey Bryony, that's you. I'm me. I'm not dead. I'm not murdered. I don't understand. Erin Yoke's older sister, Jason went on, and I realized who the vacant seat must have belonged to. Her table of friends seemed too dark, almost drab-looking without her mass of red curls lighting up the group. She was pulled from PE last period. Apparently the body was found this morning. The body? Jessie York, Erin's sister, wasn't found this morning. Her body was... That was... what happened when someone died. You began to talk about them in the past tense, and eventually accepted the fact that your loved one was no more. It wasn't Jessie they would bury in the ground. It was her body, her husk. Jessie was already gone, just like my father. No, you, Luke. No, you. But also have a lovely look. Be nice and chill. Yeah. Well, they're saying another girl has been murdered, which makes me not trust Magic Witch Boyfriend Dude. But Magic Witch Boyfriend Dude literally cannot harm humans with their magic. That was another thing I forgot to say in the recap. The witches cannot harm humans with their magic, because if they do, they turn into animals. They lose their life as a human. So, Magic Witch Boyfriend Dude is definitely not behind this. Unless he's using conventional means, which is obviously, you know, they could stab people and shoot people. I don't know if that counts, or whether they would be turned into animals for it. Have a lovely lurk, Luke. And no, you. Just generally to all that nice stuff you said. No, you. I stayed away from that thought, focusing on the matter at hand. Where did they find her? Jason grimaced at my question, and I knew he found no enjoyment in sharing this news with us. Natalie had revelled in sharing the story of Heather's disappearance when it was new and exciting, but based on the green shade of her face, I had a feeling she wouldn't be talking about either girl for a while. Not that there were two, not when she realized the danger was real. Oh, lordy. Is an animal doing... No, I reckon it's the principal, personally. I reckon it's her uncle. Potentially. For the crimes of harming a human, we shall turn you into a man-eating tiger. Now go reflect on your sins. Well, we know there's been a kangaroo for one of them. And a boar? I think there was a boar. Was there mention of a boar? There's now. She's a sophomore at the community college, but she works part-time at Gigi's Oil. Apparently she was working there late last night and never came home. She took a steadying breath. They found her in the dumpster behind the building. Oh, that's shitty. Oh no. My stomach flopped again. Tossed in the dumpster like a piece of trash. What kind of monster did that sort of thing? I didn't want to think about what state her body might have been in. What sort of things were done to her before her life was finally snuffed out. Kangaroos are surprisingly murderous in the wild. Ah, yes, well, that's the thing, normal-sized phantom. That's why it was weird. Like, the animals they get transformed into does not care for their geographical location, which is why it was very strange to find a kangaroo coming out of the forest. Oh, hey, thank you for the subscription. I'm really sad that the... I can't see who's subscribing because this is in the way. Wait a sec. Genji Shimada, thank you. I had to move that because I couldn't see. Thank you for the subscribing. I appreciate it. Yay. Yay. There would be no lingering doubts regarding what happened to Heather. She was dead, most likely discarded in the same way Jessie had been. It was only a matter of time before her body showed up too. No, come on, next page please. There we go. Her parents would refuse to accept it for a while, clinging to the hope that she'd simply run off or had amnesia like some cheesy soap opera before remembering who she was and finally finding her way home. But she wasn't coming home. I knew this because I'd come to know the world we lived in. It was dark. It was ugly. And it didn't hesitate in ripping our loved ones away from us. For the rest of the lunch period, I listened to people reminisce about Jessie. She was such a quiet girl, always minded her own business. She was the perfect daughter and sister. Remember when she gave that freshman her lunch because she didn't have any money? She was good. She will be missed. When the bell sounded, I followed Natalie out of the cafeteria and down the hall that led to our lockers. I felt like I was in a trance, just focused on placing one foot in front of the other. I was dimly aware of the sluggish movements of the students around me. We were all zombies today. As we neared the row of navy blue lockers, Natalie nudged me with her elbow and brought me back to reality. I looked up to see a large group of kids huddling around one of the lockers. The murmuring of the students was a low buzz in my ear, and I watched as newcomers pushed past each other to get a look at whatever was holding everyone's attention. I realized with a start they were looking at my locker. Natalie must have noticed at the same time, because at that moment she grabbed my arm and began pushing her way through the throng. As we waded through the sea of students, I felt them go silent around me. It might have been my imagination, but I swore a few of them cringed away from me when they recognized my face. As we reached my locker and I froze with Natalie's arm around mine, I didn't have to turn around to know we weren't in the middle of the mob anymore. I could feel the empty space around me like an electric field. I could hear the unified breaths of the students hovering 6 feet away, giving me a wide berth, like I had the plague. Newspaper clippings were taped all over my locker, adorning the blue Oh no! Oh, poor girl! Adorning the blue metal and in an array of grey. My heart stopped in my chest as I recognized the articles cut straight out of the Plainfield Daily Post. I felt them then, the eyes burning into me from every direction. They stared out of the student body I'd finally been accepted into. My best friend, who'd dropped my arm, and almost out of the flat black eyes of the victims who smiled upon my locker. I took in the faces of Amelia Piper and Nathan Miles, the junior yearbook photos in grainy blur. And then there was my father, his photo taken from a fishing trip we went on just last summer. His eyes were somehow warm, as if the black and white photo had failed to leech the life out of him. As if the article below his gaze, stating exactly what he'd done, was no more than a bad dream. This was a bad dream. This had to be a nightmare, because my past was supposed to be behind me. Was supposed to stay in Plainfield where it belonged. I hadn't received any hateful messages in weeks. I thought my old classmates had gotten bored, had perhaps moved on to bullying someone else since I was no longer around. I was so wrong. Hands reached out and began clawing at the locker door, ripping and shredding the evidence. My hands, pale white against the grey, inky paper. They shook in my struggle to hide the articles, even as bits of pieces clung to the cold metal as the tape held on. My fingers scraped against the blue paint. I had to get rid of it all. There wouldn't be a single piece of grey left behind to remind me of what I was, what my father had made me part of. Worthless alcoholic family. I was down to a single piece of tape that was refusing to let go. The papers were balled in a fist I had pressed against the cold steel, but that stubborn piece of tape was laughing at me, just like the students were probably laughing at my back from the safety of their group, safety of their numbers. Quietly, another set of hands began working away at the tape. Her hot pink fingernails made quick work of it, and then they were around me, pulling me in for a tight hug. Oh, I'm not crying, you're crying. Oh. Hello, Nako-chan. It was only then I realized I was crying. In the 80s, every single charity shop had about 5 copies of Flowers in the Attic. Writing a book called Something in the Attic is pretty risky after the success of Flowers. It is very true, but they could also succeed by having people search for something in the attic and this book come up. Who knows? But I'm not nearly crying. It was only then that I realized I was crying. I couldn't hug her back, though. Even as the bell rang again and the students behind us dispersed, I stood rigid and unmoving as she squeezed me to her chest. I couldn't look at Natalie, and my new best friend who'd accepted me without question. She had a normal life in this tiny town, had normal parents and a sister and a family that would never be broken. How could she continue to hug me with the new knowledge that I was tainted? Shame washed over me, hot and familiar. I was going to ruin her social standing, just like I ruined Michael's. Destroying things was a skill my family excelled at. Footsteps echoed down the now vacant hall. It was probably a teacher, ready to hand out detentions for hanging around my locker when class had already started. That would just be the cherry on top of my perfect day! It was mere hours ago I had risen from bed, with the foresight that today would be a good day. How naive I had been. You weren't allowed to have good days when your father was a murderous drunk. Somehow I'd forgotten that. Cammy? A male voice called. The footsteps picked up as the caller jogged to my side. I was shaking at that point, my sobs stuck in my throat. I scrunched my eyes closed tight, believing for a moment that if I couldn't see the papers and the judgmental faces of my peers, then they didn't exist. Like a toddler, if I couldn't see them, then they wouldn't see me. And that was all I wanted at the moment. Never to be seen again. There was whispering as Natalie spoke quietly over my shoulder to our new arrival. A calm, breathy reply. I didn't try to make out their words, knowing they were surely discussing me and my pathetic state. When would I stop being a burden on everyone? Go on to class, Miss Morgan. I'll take it from here. Like I was simply a situation that needed to be handled. Natalie squeezed my shoulders one final time before releasing me. Through my tears and running nose, I could barely make out the scent of my uncle's cologne. A moment before I opened my eyes and peered up at him. His face was thick with sympathy, and something else I had to squint my eyes to make out. Determination, I thought. But at what? Come on, hun, he said simply. His hand was warm and firm on my back as he led me through the school and into the principal's office. I wasn't going to fight the special treatment this time. Not when the alternative was attending class in my puffy-dyed state. Literally the worst thing in the world. Where more probing eyes awaited me. His office was small and neat. A white L-shaped desk took up half the room, its surface covered in neat stacks of paper, a stapler and a cup holding an assortment of boring black pens. A laptop was open on the far side of the desk, and I was startled to see my own face staring out of it. Yeah, I don't like this uncle. There's this thing that, the book has said so far that Cammy's dad didn't like his uncle. And the uncle seems to be stepping up to be her dad, but it's all a bit too much too fast. A little creepy. I don't like it. The picture my uncle had chosen for his background image had been taken 5 years ago, back when our families still visited each other a few times a year. My 12-year-old self was sandwiched between my aunt and my uncle, my wet hair dripping into a purple polka-dotted bathing suit. I'd decided was my favourite that summer. My mother stood on the other side of my aunt, wrapped in a blue cover-up and an unnecessarily wide straw hat. You think our uncle's being a creepy dude? He's not very obvious about it, but... Sorry, my tea was getting cold. I needed to finish that off. I think he's wanted Cammy to be his daughter for a long time. And not liked her dad for it, potentially. I don't know. I get vibes from him. I get some bad vibes is all. Maybe he's fine, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong. But I have some vibes that I do not trust. My dad must have been the one to take the picture because he was nowhere to be found. His absence in yet another family moment had my eyes streaming all over again. Uncle Peter led me to the wooden chair in front of his desk and motioned for me to sit. I silently obeyed, my tears now running freely down my face and splattering onto my jeans. With my head down, I could just catch his movement from the corner of my eye as he sank into the office chair on the other side of the desk. We sat for a moment without speaking. My occasional sniffle and hiccup were the only sounds to break the silence. I could feel his eyes on my face, but he gave me time to pull myself together before sighing quietly. I'm just wondering how the photos and stuff from the old state got to the new school. Another reason why I'm not sure I trust the dad. It's not like they couldn't have looked it up. Like, Google and phones exist in this. Someone could have just looked it up. Easily. Very easily. And then they just could have printed them out. But they did say there were newspaper clippings, so... If that's the case, then yeah, maybe it would have had to been sent specifically, or maybe they could have ordered it online. Who knows? So Uncle murdered all the students, then got Dad drunk and killed him, and set it up to look like a drunk driving incident. Also get close to the girl. Clever plan. I don't think it's quite that bad. I don't know. I don't have any logical reason for it, okay? I don't have much of a logical reason for there to be this. Like, the uncle's one of the few people who probably would have access to the newspaper clippings, other than her mum. But I doubt they would have kept them. Uncle might have, because he might have been like, haha, lol. Now they're mine. I don't know. I could feel his eyes on my face, but he gave me a little time to pull myself together before sighing quietly. Do you want to talk about it? Why did adults always think that talking about something would magically make it better? I didn't think my throat could open wide enough to let a single word out, let alone try to explain the situation I had just been in. But my uncle had rescued me, had saved me from walking into class and enduring the stares and whispers that would inevitably follow me everywhere for the rest of the day. At least I owed him an explanation. Yeah, I mean, the internet's a scary place. You can find out information on anything and everyone if you really tried. Best not, you know. Respect people's privacy. I looked down at my hands and realized I was still clutching remnants of the evidence. Wordlessly, I dropped the ball of wadded up newspaper on the desk and allowed my uncle to sift through in silence. I watched his hands unravel and smooth out the articles, his deft movement somewhat soothing as I tried to catch my breath. I kept my head down, afraid to meet his eyes, and whatever emotion would be displayed there. Camille, he said at last. My eyes finally flicked up to his, but the emotions I saw there weren't ones I was expecting. There was sympathy, yes, but something stronger burned behind it. Who the hell did this? He demanded. Anger, I thought. The other emotion was anger. I'd steeled myself for the pitying leer I'd come to expect from adults ever since my father died. I hadn't expected them to get angry on my behalf. My chest swelled with appreciation, and in my current dejected state, anger was an emotion I could handle. I shrugged my shoulders. I don't know, I mumbled. The clippings were taped up during lunch, so anyone could have done it. Perhaps one of my classmates had a friend who went to Plainfield and had waited until now to share the knowledge with the school. I was pretty sure a tiny place like Green Peaks didn't have cameras in the hallways, so unless someone fessed up to the crime, it would most likely remain a mystery. My uncle shook his head. I'm going to get to the bottom of this, Cammy, he said firmly. I won't tolerate bullying in my school, and I certainly won't allow it to happen to my niece. His voice held resolve. I wished I had in my own heart, and I couldn't help feeling grateful for it. I may have felt defeated, but perhaps I could let my uncle be strong for me. Perhaps I didn't have to carry the burden alone. Uncle Peter sighed and sat back in his chair. This isn't your fault, you know. His eyes held mine, and I felt myself nodding at his words, whether I believed them or not. It wasn't my fault my father had killed those kids, but that didn't stop me from feeling guilty all the same. I still had 2 periods left before the final bell would ring, but Uncle Peter didn't make me go back to class. I sat across from him for the remainder of the school day, talking when I felt like it, and simply enjoying the silence in between. It was the break I needed, and might have been the only thing keeping me from an actual meltdown in the middle of school. He offered to drive me home, but I shook my head. Natalie would be waiting for me, and I knew I couldn't avoid her forever. When the final bell rang, I nodded at my uncle in thanks, and made my way out to the parking lot to wait. It was easier in the open air to pretend people weren't looking my way. The hallway had been suffocating, but out here I could breathe. Natalie never locked her truck, so I sent her a text and climbed into the cab where I could hide. She must have sprinted across the parking lot, because in 30 seconds she was opening the driver's door to join me. Her face a mask of worry, and tears sparkled in her eyes as she drank me in. I'm so sorry, Cammy, she whispered, leaning across the cab. She grabbed me in another bone-crushing hug, and this one I returned. I should have never doubted her loyalty. It was going to take more than a drunk, dead father to turn Natalie against me. Still, even as I gripped her back, I knew she wasn't the one I needed to be with at this moment. As she drove me home, I felt the pull towards the forest once again, stronger than it had ever been before. I need to go cry in my boyfriend's chest mood. When we arrived in my driveway, I didn't hesitate. I slammed the door behind me and hurried to the back porch, where I dropped my backpack in a heap in one of the chairs. I didn't bother going inside. I didn't care if Natalie was watching me from the truck. I didn't care about anything except the one person who had the ability to erase everything from my mind. Big W for Natalie, yes! In this house we stand Natalie. She's a real one, she is. That's what they say nowadays, the kids, the real ones, yes. I ran forward towards the tree line, feeling my worries and fears leave me with every step I took. When I finally broke into the woods, he was there waiting for me. My one constant in this relentless mess of life of mine. Will she be the next to die? No! Normal size phantom. No, don't do that. Don't. Can I stand Bryony and Natalie? No, Natalie is a child. And it's weird. Well, I think they're nearly 18, but that's still very weird. Still very weird. I didn't stop running until I slammed into his chest. Didn't bother to breathe until I felt his arms around me. Cammy? Zeke asked in alarm. There were no words to describe what I was feeling. No way to explain my sudden need to keep him in spite of everything that was going on. And so I didn't speak. As I pulled away just enough to look him in the eyes, I didn't say anything before standing on my toes and pulling him down to kiss me. Oh lord, it's smooch time. Smooch o'clock, everyone. But you said we stand Natalie in this house. Why'd you forget that for 5 seconds? Oh, no, sorry. I confused stand for shipping for a hot second, even though I'd already used the word in a different sentence and context. But yes, you can stand both. That's very silly of me. No, don't jinx it. Natalie will make it to the end and live a good life as a fantastic person. Yes. Yep, PG-rated smooch o'clock. Smooch o'clock. I breathed in Zeke's scent, wondering if it was possible to be intoxicated by a person's fragrance. We were sitting in an overturned tree, my back up against his chest. Where we were sitting in my back. That's gotta be kind of uncomfortable if she's smooching at the same time. Oh no, or is she just laying on him? I guess she's just laying on me. I see the smooch is done. The smooch is done. The bark was covered in a layer of soggy green moss that created a soft blanket to relax on. I never imagined I could be so comfortable and so at ease in a forest called the Cursed Woods. I also never knew a witch could be so easy to talk to. Do you miss him? He swirled my hair round his fingers, brushing my shoulders and back lightly. How could someone's touch be so warm and at the same time send goosebumps racing across my skin? If I was a cat, I would have purred. Yeah, I whispered back. His hand made soothing circles on my back, and I leant into him further. Sometimes I wake up smelling coffee, and I think for a moment that he'll be waiting at the kitchen table. I shook my head slowly. But it's always just my mum. I wonder if Brownie has shipping on her mind. Who is she shipping? Myself and my boyfriend. Yes, some comfortable soggy moss to soak my clothes wet while I relax. That is probably one of the most unrealistic parts of this, definitely. Like, I get that foliage can, in fact, be comfortable. But not the squishy moss. Somehow, it was easy to talk to Zeke about my dad. Painless, even. He had led me away from the forest entrance, down a path only his eyes could see, and eventually eased me into that log in the heart of the trees. When he brushed away my tears and asked me what happened, I told him everything. I spilled my soul. I wasn't sure how he understood half of what I said amidst my blubbering, but somehow he caught every word. He would have liked you, I said with a smile. Oh? I turned to look at his face and saw bewilderment there. How could Zeke not know that he was an amazing guy? He loved the outdoors. Fishing, camping, hunting. He was a firm believer that when the zombie apocalypse came, our family would know how to survive the elements. You know how to take care of yourself, and that's something he would have respected. Zeke's eyebrows drew together. Zombie apocalypse? He said the words like they tasted funny in his mouth. Of course he had no idea what I was talking about. It was easy to forget that he wasn't a part of my world, that he was secluded from all the pop culture references that were created in the last 100 years. You always see these romantic scenes with a boy and girl relaxing amongst the foliage, but never see the ants crawling over them. Oh, that's my nightmare. I hate ants. Specifically for that reason, that they can crawl over you and you won't even be able to feel it. The biggest of no-nos. I laughed at the expression on his face. Oh, don't worry about it. It was difficult to keep track of time in the woods, where the light filtering through the leaves always made you feel like it was just after dawn. I didn't know how long we'd been sitting there talking, and a part of me didn't care if I stayed there all night. This is what I needed. Zeke was what I needed. I took another deep breath and relished in the air filling my lungs, unburdened by the weight that had pressed on my chest mere hours before. I held on to that moment with Zeke with everything I had, knowing that when I returned to reality, the weight would likely return. When the zombie apocalypse comes around, I'll survive because I wash my hands. But zombie prey, I wash my hands! Gah! I'll be fine. No, I won't. I'll be one of the first to die in the zombie apocalypse. That much is true. I'll do my damnedest, but you know, not sure I could do it. I'm not very fit. I try my best to not be too unfit, but I am unfit. Phantom with very real questions. My state has fire and so I don't really want to lay down in places. Oh my god. My conservatory is festive with ants. No! Blossom Southworth, that sucks. Ugh. That's the last thing on. I tend to find a lot of dead wood lice in my conservatory, but at least not. You gotta go to the gym more than me. I do go to the gym more than you, but that doesn't mean... My problem is I don't try hard at the gym. I move. I do things, but like, if I really wanted a level of fitness, I'd have to try harder than I do at the gym. I did get Ring Fit recently. So I've been trying to do it on that more. I just want to make it to day 3 or something. Yeah, day 3. Sounds good. That sounds like a good target. Don't be... And then you can be part of the big hordes that go against the other survivors. That would be fun. Zeke broke the moment by stating what I already knew. It's getting late, he whispered into my hair. You probably need to be getting back. His voice was thick with regret, and I knew he dreaded my departure as much as I did. I heaved a big sigh and extracted my phone from my jacket pocket to check the time. The screen lit up and displayed the block numbers brightly. 7:05. Oh no! I do love... Yeah, Ring Fit's been really fun, actually. It's tricky, but it's really fun. You agreed you agreed with no hesitation. As if you assumed I'm fat. Wait. You go to the gym more than me? I don't know. You stated it. You're the one who said it. I have no idea about your life, Void. Do you go to the gym? As a Ring Fit stream when I have considered it. But the thing is my office is really small. So, I would have to do some clearing up and make some space before I could do that. So, it may be a little bit away. Crap. We really had been talking for 3.5 hours. My mum was gonna freak. I sat up with a jerk as I noticed 10 text messages and 6 missed calls. My phone was still set to silent mode from the school day, and my mum was already freaking out. Double crap! I jumped to my feet and spun around. I have to go now, I choked. His eyes widened and took in my frantic state. I'll lead you back. Ring Fit while reading a book. We could try. I don't know how long I'll last. I walk about half a mile to a mile per weekday to get the bus. Fair, Void, honestly. That's a pretty good workout routine. Uh-oh, someone is about to be called their full name. Oh no. Oh no, Camille! Oh, here it is. He gripped my hand and turned... Oh, and she's gonna be so mad, because there was literally just a young girl being murdered recently. Oh, this poor woman. He gripped my hand and turned towards the direction of the house, but before we could take so much of a single step, the shouting reached our ears. Cammy! Camille! Cammy, where are you? 3 sets of voices, 1 male and 2 female. I could hear them tromping through the leaves and debris, their steps coming directly at us. I whirled towards Zeke, panic illuminating my face. My family! He nodded, then pulled me close, crushing me in one final hug. I breathed in his scent and willed it to be enough to keep my chest and airways open after he was gone. He pressed his lips against my forehead. I shuddered, savouring their softness and warmth. Go, he breathed. Then he was gone. His warmth ripped away from me as painfully as a bandage being removed. My chest tightened immediately, and I stared at the swaying plants and leaves he disappeared into. A part of me ached to follow him. To simply leave my family behind and never look back. Cammy! My uncle's voice broke through my pondering, and I listened to his heavy breaths as he approached me from behind. I finally turned when he reached me, taking in the relief in his eyes that was only marred by the lingering fear of not knowing where I'd been. He sighed as I faced him at last. "What are you doing out here?" He heaved between breaths. He had obviously been running. I felt a twinge of guilt at his distraught state. Never skip leg day. What if the parents met each other? I would like that to happen before the end of the book. That would be nice. Just hiking? I shrugged. Uncle Peter finally caught his breath and eyed me suspiciously. Hiking? He inspected the forest behind me, the trees that Zeke had disappeared into seconds before. I kept my gaze on my uncle, forcing myself not to turn and look for Zeke's footprints that might be visible in the soft ground. There won't be footprints, I promised myself. Zeke was made from the forest, and he knew how to navigate through without leaving any traces behind. I nodded my head, bringing my uncle's attention back to me. He scrutinized my face slowly, his gaze lingering just above my eyebrows, as if he knew Zeke had kissed me there. Don't be crazy, he can't know that. I shook off the thought before paranoia could really set in. Uncle Peter stared at me a moment longer, searching for an answer to some unspoken question. Then he closed his eyes and sighed, shaking his head. Come on, Cammy, let's get you home. This book is in fact American, with much American things. Like them calling a kettle a water boiler. That's stupid! You see, Uncle, I was hanging out with my cool lives in the forest. My cool lives in the forest boyfriend who has witch powers. You've been watching too much Charmed, Cammy. I gripped my steaming mug of tea, willing it to bring life back to my numb hands. There was nothing to be done about the numbness in my mind, though. The only cure for that was making its way deeper into the cursed woods as we spoke. What were you thinking? My mother huffed for what felt like the 100th time. She'd collapsed into the oversized armchair after working a visible path into the carpet by her pacing feet. Her head was in her hands, as if she couldn't stand to look at me now that she knew I was safe. Aunt Lacey rubbed her shoulders soothingly and pegged me with a glare that said, "This is why I didn't have kids." Bro! I couldn't blame her. Guilt squirmed in my stomach once again for being selfish, as to not consider my mum before disappearing into the woods for a few hours. I didn't even have the decency to leave a note. I'm sorry, I whispered again. It was all I had managed to get out since we arrived home and settled into the much neglected living room. Hello, bored panda, welcome. A kettle, a water boiler, nah, mate, what they on? Exactly! Yeah, I can see the two mums fighting over grocery store coupons, just like I would be over-competitive in briny competition to get full reimbursement on Moongirl 6 and exclusive products. I don't think they'd be fighting over grocery store tickets, considering one of them never goes to the grocery store. Aunt Lacey is such a mood. I prefer to be the cool Uncle Brother. Yes, definitely. I whispered again. It was all I had managed to get out since we arrived home and settled into the much-neglected living room. You're sorry? She boomed, finally looking up at me. Behind the well of tears flowing down her face, her eyes were crazed. I thought you were dead like the others! I stared at the floor and tried to breathe around the hole in my chest. From his seat beside me on the couch, my uncle leaned over and placed a soft hand on the back of my neck, squeezing gently. She's right, you know, he said in a low voice. You shouldn't be out in the woods with a killer on the loose. And you certainly should have told your mother where you were going. I couldn't help hearing my father's voice behind his words. If only my dad had been there. Maybe I wouldn't have felt the need to run off after a bad day. Maybe I wouldn't have maybe I would have confided in him instead. But of course, I wouldn't have been bullied in the first place if it wasn't for my father. It's not a water boiler or a kettle. It's a high-pitched steam squealer that'll kill your ears. That's only if you don't have an electric one. I met my mother's gaze again and flinched inwardly. She was so mad. I hadn't seen her this upset with me since I snuck out when I was 15, driving after curfew without a license. There'd been a boy involved then, too, although I could hardly compare that ember of a relationship to the growing inferno I shared with Zeke. As if reading my mind, my mum narrowed her eyes. "Is this about that boy?" she demanded. "Were you with him in the woods?" I felt my uncle's hand tighten momentarily on my neck, his nails biting into my skin fractionally. Had he caught a glimpse of Zeke's retreating figure, after all? I couldn't afford to have my family digging into the secret of what lived in the middle of the cursed woods. I had to protect Zeke and his people at all costs. I tried to breathe evenly as I met my mother's glare. No, I wasn't. Surprisingly, my voice sounded convincing, even to my own ears. I guess it was true that when they said practice makes perfect. Soon I'd have an Olympic medal in the sport of lying. How do you plug the electric one in? Electric kettles have a base you put it on, and then you plug in the base. That's how electric kettles work. I tried to breathe evenly as I met my mother's glare. No, oh wait, I read that one. I forced myself to maintain eye contact as I went on. I had a rough day at school, and I thought a hike would make me feel better. I didn't realize how late it had gotten. My uncle's hand relaxed and paused for a moment before moving down to rub my back. Please stop touching the girl. I didn't need to examine his face to know there was sympathy there. I watched my mother's eyes leave my own and focus on his. A heartbeat later, I felt rather than saw his solemn nod. My mother stood slowly, and I imagined her joints creaking like hinges on the ancient doors of our house. Her body seemed to have aged decades in the last few hours. She was silent as she crossed the large room and settled into the other place beside me on the couch. Carefully, she grasped the hand I had clenched into a fist on my knee. Has the bullying started again? My eyes darted to hers. There was a hollowness there in her eyes that I suspected could only be present in a mother who felt like she was failing her child. I had done everything I could to hide the fact that I was being bullied after my father's demise. Always being careful to lock my phone and close my laptop. I thought I had successfully hidden the incriminating messages from her. It was instinct to try hide that torment from my mother, to prevent her from feeling obligated to help me, when I knew there was nothing that could be done on the matter. I wonder how she learned the truth. How long she'd known I was suffering more than a teenager who'd just lost her father ever should. Perhaps in her something in her eyes told me that she had known for a while, because she's your mother, sweetie Beatie. She knows all. She's your mother. A part of me wanted to be angry that she never reached out, never asked if things were getting better, if she knew what was going on, but mostly I just felt defeated. I never wanted her to share that pain with me. Aw, thank you, Blossom Southworth. I appreciate it. You're sweet. You're sweet. I couldn't look her in the eyes anymore, and I couldn't bear to explain what happened at school one more time. I listened in silence as Uncle Peter described the incident and discussed it with my mothers in hushed tones. They spoke like I was a wild animal incapable of hearing voices uttered above a whisper without getting spooked. Maybe they were afraid that if they spoke too loudly, I would take off for the woods again. It wasn't a bad idea, honestly. In the end, I didn't cause another scene by taking off again. My aunt and uncle stayed for supper. Lasagna that had been nuked in the microwave because it sat on the counter all evening while my mother lost her mind looking for me. Oh no! You didn't ruin the lasagna too! While you're at it, tell them to get their friends to subscribe and tell them they should tell them that their pet goldfish should subscribe. I don't know how many goldfish would have YouTube accounts, but I feel like there's more than one. There's that one that played Elden Ring. Maybe that one should subscribe to me too. There was no more talk of bullying, and much to my surprise, Mum didn't bring up the fact again that I had spent time with a boy recently. It was one of the most normal suppers we'd had in a while, despite the darkness outside the windows that betrayed the late time. For a single evening, I could pretend I lived in a normal world. Nothing might ever fill the void of my father, but my aunt and uncle were a warm presence I hadn't taken the time to fully appreciate until that night. We joked and laughed and filled our stomachs, all while the nourishment was taking place in our hearts. It wasn't until the next morning that I was forced to remember this wasn't a perfect world. Oh, no. I gotta go back to school after that. This is gonna be awful. I can't imagine having to go back to school after something like that. It'd be freaking awful. Green Peaks High School did not have an assembly hall or even a theatre with a stage to feature the drama productions. In a school that only taught 200 students, the gymnasium held everything from basketball games to plays and musicals to student pep rallies and a... Oh, I thought I needed to sneeze. I still kind of feel like I need to sneeze. Ah, I should make a YouTube account for my cat to subscribe here. I have learned she likes watching blonde anime girls. Well, she's a good kitty. She has stopped to watch my phone for several times. Oh, hello, kitty! What a good girl. Or boy, I can't remember. I think they were girls, weren't they? Yes, you said she. Yes, good girl. You're a good girl. You're a pretty girl. Good kitty. Yeah. Always take time to address the animal fans, obviously. It made sense that the gym would be used to house yet another assembly, the subject of which had the whole town in panic. The bleachers that were usually folded against the wall to accommodate more activities had been pulled out, suggesting we were about to watch the Green Peaks High School basketball team get pummeled by a rival school. Upon entry, we were sorted into our graduating classes, the freshmen and sophomores taking up the bleachers on the visiting side, the juniors and seniors grouped on the home side bleachers. So, Bryony, if the uncle is a weirdo, should the whole, oh, you love your family even if you say you don't thing apply to them too? Or would you understand if she hated him, if he turned out to be bad? I mean, I'd understand if she hated him. This is the first time she's had any real communication with him in 5 years, and she's 18, so she was 12, 13 last time she really spoke to him, and that's ages ago for a girl that age. Like, she doesn't even remember them very well. So I wouldn't blame them if she hated them if they turn out to be bad. I might be wrong though. I might still be wrong. I held Natalie's hand as more seniors filled in the seats around us. Or rather, I offered my hand as a sacrifice to keep her comfortable. Yes, totally. I did my best to keep a straight face as she squeezed the life out of it. The whole bench shook as Natalie's knee jumped up and down in the rhythm of my racing heart. I hoped the screws holding the bleachers together could make it through the entire assembly. Listening to the steady creaks, I cursed myself for not choosing a seat in the bottom row. Oh, wait. Water bottle, come here. Thank you, water bottle. I wish we could get this over with already, Taylor murmured from my other side. Carly nodded beside him as more students trickled in to join their waiting classmates. Jason hadn't made an appearance yet, which wasn't at all surprising. I wished for once that Natalie and I didn't always arrive at school 20 minutes early, that we were like Jason and had to sprint through the halls every morning to beat the tardy bell by seconds. The anticipation of this meeting was killing me. Cat update. She sniffed the phone while you were greeting her. Aw, what a sweetie. I closed my eyes and focused on breathing in and out. I dragged the air down into my lungs and pushed it back up again. Since I moved to Green Peaks, my life had been nothing but ups and downs. There were highs I achieved through my time with Zeke, were always shattered by the darkness of reality and reminders of my past. I wondered how many more downs I could survive before the hypothetical roller coaster in my mind would finally snap, breaking me with it. Did I miss anything? Jason's voice pulled me out. Oh, I think I need to blow my nose. I'm gonna mute myself for a second. I want you to... Ba-ba-da-ba. Yeah, it's the funny weather right now. Where it's rainy, but it's still somehow warm. So, like, the sinuses are confused right now. Jason's voice pulled me out of the depths of my mind, and I turned to watch him settle down on the bench beside Natalie. He took her other hand without being asked, and began making small smoothing circles with his thumb. Oh, poor Natalie, she's soft. It is boogie time. Booger time. Here's a cat fact, since I haven't heard from your little bot in a while. Cats show trust by giving you a little headbutt. They do! And it's so adorable! Even without sound, your model following the emotions is pretty fun. Yeah, I gotta blow my nose, okay. Like that. I watched as both of their faces softened fractionally, then noticed how Natalie's breaths evened and relaxed, her leg finally growing still. Maybe it was the stress of the situation at hand, or something that had been years in the making, but I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't stop my smile as I witnessed what I hoped was the beginning of something great between my two closest friends. Ah, that's nice. I was worried that Jason was going to be the start of, like, a triangle, but, no, we're good. We're good. He's got a waifu. We're good. I turned my attention to the rest of the gym and found that the bleachers were full at last. I recognized a few of my teachers sprinkled throughout the faces of lower classmen, their expressions grave. I forced my lifeless hand to squeeze Natalie's back, not for her comfort, but for mine. If my teachers were this somber, the news had to be even worse than we thought. Good morning, everyone, a disembodied voice rang out. I quickly found the source of the sound, 4 large speakers hanging from the tall ceilings and pointing in every corner of the gym. As I examined the black, felt-covered boxes, a high-pitched wailing assaulted the room. I joined the scramble to cover my ears as someone made an adjustment to the volume. Sorry about that, the voice laughed. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Principal Morse made his way across the court, stopping when he reached the jump circle in the center of the gym. His brown hair was in its usual combed-back style. His khaki pants and his black polo shirt suggested he was ready for a normal, dull day at the high school. But normal days didn't begin with the school assembly, and there was nothing dull about the subject he was about to broach. Thank goodness there won't be enough triangles. Yes! That's the one part of the YA I think we can do without. Can everyone hear me? Uncle Peter spun in a circle as he regarded the serious faces of students and faculty. Those that still had their hands over their ears put them down at last and nodded their approval. The silence that fell over the room was deafening as we waited. What news was so important that it required an interruption in class? They were letting us have an early fall break? Was there a problem with the plumbing, causing the halls to be filled with sewage and therefore unfit for class? Endless possibilities buzzed through my veins as I waited for my uncle to steel himself for the speech he had prepared. Uncle Peter covered the microphone with one hand as he breathed a deep sigh. He lifted his chin and gazed upward for several seconds, as if he might find the courage to get through this meeting carved on the ceiling tiles. After what felt like an eternity, he took another deep breath, uncovered the microphone, and began. As all of you are well aware, tragedy has plagued the community over the last few weeks. Oh, hello, the Hermit Gamer. Welcome. Must resist making dirty joke. What does the pipes being filled with sewage have to do with class? They just don't drink water. He means the pipes would have burst and flooded the hallways. I think that's what they were trying to get at. His eyes darted to my corner of the gym, the seniors, where Erin Yoke huddled into a group with her friends a few rows below. I wish I had better news to tell you, Peter sighed. I wish I could tell you that the killer was found, but we can finally wake up from this terrible nightmare. But the only thing we've continued to find are the bodies of his victims. Another sigh as Peter closed his eyes. Every fidget in the room stilled as we steeled ourselves for the next words. Please, I thought, just get on with this. Early this morning, one of our own was found dead in the woods. My breath caught in my throat as my uncle turned slowly on the spot, surveying all of us. There'd been another, and so soon after Jesse. Weren't serial killers supposed to space their murders out more? And it was someone from our school? In a community this small, there was no doubt everyone in attendance would know the victim. The gym quickly filled with the whispering of students, the same hushed questions repeated 1,000 times. Who? Who was missing in the assembly of 200 students? It felt like a game of Clue, as I watched my classmates crane their necks around searching for faces of their friends, relaxing when they found them. I couldn't stop myself from following suit, regardless of the fact I barely knew a quarter of the students at Green Peaks High. Peter put us out of our misery by revealing the young woman's identity at last. The latest victim of the Green Peaks serial killer was our own Penny Carson. Gasps rang out across the assembly. My own breath stuck in my throat. I watched as Taylor and Carly shook their heads in denial. They searched the crowd, once again desperately trying to find our beloved art teacher's face. I could feel their anger and despair radiating in my own chest. I knew they wanted nothing more than to call my uncle out for telling such a cruel lie and stop this never-ending nightmare, but it wasn't a lie. And this nightmare was real. I could see the evidence just by examining the faces of the teachers and faculty present. They had known, I realized, well before this assembly began. They probably had their own meeting before any of this started, because they were the adults here and would need to be prepared to handle our adolescent grief. But how could you prepare yourself to handle the grief of 200 students when you could hardly handle your own? When the victim was not only a beloved teacher, but also a dearest friend. As the gym filled with crying students, all I could do was squeeze Natalie's hand on my right and Taylor's on my left. I didn't know when I had taken his hand or if he'd taken mine, but I was grateful to have one more tether to the earth. Natalie shook beside me as she sobbed into Jason's shoulder. I felt Taylor's other arm move, and turned silently to see him grasping Carly's hand on the other side. We were a joined force, sharing our emotions through the physical contact with me in the center. I couldn't help remembering that bond I shared with Zeke's coven. Was it my imagination that I could feel my friend's energies now? Just as I felt the energies and minds of those witches. Even if that was the case, I didn't feel powerful or in possession of any life-changing abilities. I felt small and useless and overwhelmed. In the wake of this tragedy, I thought my uncle would give us more time to recover, more time to process this new piece of information before charging on with the next bit of bad news, but like ripping off a band-aid. Maybe it was for the best that he inflicted all the pain on us at once rather than dragging it out. Mrs. Carson was found at the edge of Green Peaks Forest close to the school, discovered by an early morning jogger. Natalie flinched beside me, but Principal Morse went on, no longer pausing to compose himself between statements. I also feel obliged to tell you that Mrs. Carson's body wasn't the only one found last night. The body of Heather Reed was also discovered, officially marking her as the first victim of the Green Peaks serial killer. Her car and remains were found stashed in the forest just off the highway. There were more murmurings from the students, but I didn't bother opening my mouth to whisper to my friends. Perhaps some of Heather's friends and family had continued to hope that she was alive, and well, but I had never held such delusions. Jesse's murder had been the nail in Heather's coffin for me. If a person could be capable of murdering one girl, what would one more evil deed be to his already blackened soul? Okay, the Hermit Gamer, have a nice day. I have a crackpot theory. 201st person X. You said there were 200 students, right? I think so. I think she said there was barely 200 students. So catch show trust by giving little headbutts. What is jumping onto your bed just to vomit up a hairball meant to convey? I don't know. You might have to Google that one. For those of you keeping a tally, that's 3 young women dead. 2 of them were found in the cursed woods, as you kids like to call it. My eyes narrowed slightly. Where was Peter going with this? Of course, we were all keeping a tally. You could hardly ignore or forget the name of a person who was taken from this world so cruelly. I zeroed on my uncle, still standing in the center of the court, with his back to my side of the gym. As if he could feel my eyes on him, he turned and gazed at my section of the bleachers, at me. His posture changed in the last few minutes. His shoulders now straight, his head held high. I felt his eyes burn into mine, knowing he'd seen this steely expression on his face before. He'd worn it in the principal's office the day before. Could that really have been only yesterday? He'd been determined then, and he was determined now. For what, I didn't know. My uncle went on. For those of you who grew up here, whose families have grown up here, you'll know that there are interesting stories surrounding the forest we call the Cursed Woods. I held my breath again, not liking where this was going. There have been rumours, legends passed down about what kinds of things might be lurking in the depths of the forest. Some of your grandparents or even great-grandparents might know what I'm referring to, although no one likes to discuss it. Uncle, what you doing? Uncle Peter scanned the faces of the students again before settling back on me. This town has seen more evil in the past month than it has suffered in the last 100 years. 2 lives have been taken on the fringe of the forest, and a 3rd at a building just outside of it. I think it's time we start listening to the stories of old, the ones that speak of evil living in our very own Green Peaks forest. Uncle! No. Is there such thing as a boring cursed woods? There have been rumors of the Golden Witch living there. Uncle, this is why I didn't trust him. This is why. There were more gasps as students looked at each other, the whispers growing louder as they shared their own rumors about the cursed woods to anyone who would listen. I glanced over Natalie's head at Jason. He met my eyes and gave me one of his shoulder shrugs, before turning his attention back to wiping Natalie's tears. This could not be happening. My uncle couldn't be suggesting that Zeke's people were responsible for these murders. It was inconceivable. The group of witches who had taken me in and accepted me so easily wouldn't harm a fly. They couldn't use magic to harm people, not unless they wanted to spend the rest of their lives in the body of an animal. Unless, of course, they hadn't used magic to kill them. I didn't think there were any curses connected to hurting people the old-fashioned way. What if Zeke wasn't the only member of his coven that liked to frequent the town they'd been shunned from? I had a hard time believing any of its members would murder someone in cold blood, but what if they'd been caught performing magic? What if Zeke had been caught performing magic by someone else, someone less understanding than me? How far would he go to protect people's secrets? I tried to wrap my mind around the possibility, but my thoughts were a muddled mess. I knew my face must have been a white sheet of confusion, my eyebrows drawn together as I tried to process my uncle's implications. Now wasn't the time for me to consider that I might be dating a serial killer. Not here in this school, surrounded by people grieving for the victims and calling out for the killer's blood. I've already spoken to the city council, and the town will be implementing a curfew of 9 o'clock every night, effective immediately. There were cries of outrage and actual boos thrown at my uncle as he went on. I tried not to laugh at the fact that my fellow classmates were more upset about being given a curfew than they seemed about the deaths of their friends, but with a killer on the loose, surely they would come to see the logic in it. Did they want to be on the growing tally of victims? But they're teenagers! Boo! 9 o'clock! Why not deforest the cursed woods? Why? They haven't done anything! Void, why would you deforest it? Plot twist, the murderer is a witch who is also a furry and wants to be turned into their persona. Spend the rest of the time in an animal. As their consciousness gets moved around an animal's POV, they can't do it. Yeah, it's less of becoming the animal, of being a person trapped in an animal's body. Like their brains are still very much a person in there, but they are now an animal. Which is a bit sucky. You kind of lose your opposable thumbs. Hi, friend. My friend asked if you could read the Hunger Games. I don't think I could do that, if only because of permissions. I very specifically get permissions from publishers and authors to read their books, because otherwise I could face some potential copyright issues. I could potentially read the preview of the Hunger Games one day, because there's no rules really against the free previews that are on Amazon. But most likely not, unfortunately. The time I was reincarnated as a cursed animal. Wait! This isn't an isekai, or is it? Authors reach out to me. I reach out to authors too, to be fair. I reach out to them. But yeah. I've contacted a few publishers in the past to see if I can read stuff, but they normally ignore me, so yeah. I try. I can read classics though, if there's any classics they're interested in. Because we did Frankenstein, we can do stuff like that. I closed my eyes, hoping the assembly was nearing its end. I never thought I was attending my morning classes, but I gladly welcomed 3 straight periods of calculus over if it got me out of the gym even a second faster. Over the roaring, disgruntled adolescence, I almost missed my uncle's next words. I shouldn't have judged my classmates so quickly. I might not have cared about the 9 o'clock curfew, but there was one thing I did care about. In addition to the curfew, the city will also be banning all entry into Green Peaks Forest. My eyes flew open. What did he say? No more parties in the woods, no more taking shortcuts to friends' houses, and absolutely no hiking. The roaring in my ears had nothing to do with fellow students' complaints. As I stared back at my uncle's head, I mentally threw daggers at every inch of his body, praying he would take it back. He couldn't do this. He wouldn't take away the biggest happiness I'd found since learning about my father's death. Uncle Peter turned towards me once again. For a fleeting moment, I caught a flash of steel in his eyes, so cold it could cut through my very bones. And then they returned to their normal warm chestnut, before he gave me a tight-lipped smile. Dickhead. Dickhead! This is terrible. That's why I didn't trust him! Oh yeah, when I was showing one of my uncles and grandmothers the New Look fanfiction, my grandmother asked me, how much did you pay? How much, wait, how much you paid me for you to write it? What? That's so confusing. I don't know. Sonic seems appropriate. Oh, Lord, did he do? I was banned from entering the cursed woods? Banned from my meetings with Zeke? Even as I packed my book bag after the final bell rang, I had trouble wrapping my head around the thought. How much should I pay you to read the fanfic? Oh, yeah, true. You did get that for free. I have started planning to potentially start charging authors a wee bit. Because I get some views. I have lots of subscribers. People should be paying me now. The Sonic side-eye is always appropriate. Yes. After Principal Morse released us from the gym, the school days seemed to pass by in a single breath. Every time I opened my eyes, I was transported into a different classroom with no memory of the changing periods. You gonna start charging you now? No. Unless, well, we said I was gonna read your other fanfic. And then I was gonna put that as a Patreon-y thing anyway, so people are gonna pay for that regardless. Calculus, blink. Physics, blink. English, blink. Then I was slamming my locker closed and following Natalie out to her truck. Natalie had been silent for most of the day. Everyone seemed to deal with the news of Mrs. Carson's murder differently. Taylor, who was usually polite, if not a little quiet, ignored everyone around him and stared at the ceiling for the duration of the lunch period, never once touching his pizza. Carly, on the other hand, talked constantly, as if trying to make up for the lack of Natalie's gossip. I swore her voice was hoarse by the end of the day from blatant overuse. Jason was quieter than normal, only joining in the conversations to make jokes that were too good to pass up. I caught a glance from the notebook he was doodling in and thought I could make out the features of a certain blonde actress. There was no nudity that I could see, thank goodness, but perhaps the face of Marilyn Monroe was a welcome reminiscence of the art teacher who had laughed at his unruly behaviour despite her attempts to be stern with him. I wasn't exactly sure that I needed a drink of water, but apparently I do. Is Natalie's uncle the most disrespectful character you found in a book in 2024 so far? No! One, it's not Natalie's uncle, it's the main character's uncle. Most disrespectful character I found so far in 2024. What have I read? My brain has gone blank. Oh, one minute. I need to blow my nose again. 1 second. I'm full of it right now. tropical storms make my sinuses feel funny. I don't know. Let me have a look. What have I read on stream? I mean, most disrespectful character. Was I still reading Frankenstein this year? What did I start reading this year? What have I read ever in my life? Live. So what did I read before this? We read Colosseum. I mean, Ken was pretty disrespectful. That's for sure. Very disrespectful, actually. And then we had A Brush with Magic, but we didn't get to the most disrespectful character in that one. Because we just did a preview. Yeah, that's all we've read. We did read my fanfic, didn't we? And I guess I was the most disrespectful there. Frankenstein is last year. Yeah. So I'd probably say Ken. Ken's the most disrespectful character we've had so far. Jason was quiet in it. We read that one. I wasn't exactly sure how I was handling the latest death. It pained me to admit, but I was having an easier time blocking out all thoughts of Mrs. Carson and the other murdered girls than should be possible given the circumstances. Sweetie, it's because you didn't know them. Ken just wanted the streamer to be his girlfriend. No, Ken was a salty bastard. Because he couldn't actually, because he didn't like game mechanics. And his internet waifu already had a boyfriend. He's just a salty little bitch who decided to go down the dark side. I should have been crying and grieving with the rest of the school, but instead I wiped my mind clean. Like an out-of-range radio, I filled my head with the sound of static and white noise and refused to let a single thought penetrate the wall. It was the only way I could make it through the school day without having another meltdown. If I thought about the murders and their proximity to the cursed woods, I would also be forced to think about my uncle's accusations of who was responsible for them. It was best if those speculations were saved for my bedroom, with the door locked and the curtains drawn. I wanted no witnesses if there was a chance I might fall apart. Natalie didn't utter a single word on the drive home, but her face was easy to read. Pain from losing one of her favourite teachers, fear that she could be next, and guilt that she was worrying about her own life when the lives of 3 innocent women were already taken. Frankie goes Vtubing would. I thought preventing your grieving niece to meet her new boyfriend whose emotional support was... The thing is, I don't think... Like I said, I don't trust the uncle. I don't trust him at all. But I don't know how much he knows. Like, I don't know whether this is being disrespectful or if this is his attempt to protect her. Whether he feels that... I thought the uncle didn't know about Zeke. We don't think he does. She thinks that he might have spotted him. And he seems to have hinted that he knows that things happen in the woods. But given that he runs the town, he's probably descended from the people who chased the witches out in the first place. So maybe he does know about the people in the woods. But it's a case of, if they stay in their lane, I'll stay in mine. But he might have seen these murders and gone, they're not staying in their lane. And my little niece, who I have tried to adopt, is now staying in the woods too much. I need to do something about it. I don't see it as disrespectful. I see it's maybe a little possessive at most, protective at best. That is how I see his actions. No, I don't think it's disrespectful at all. She's a young woman who, to him, is just someone he wants to protect. It's not disrespectful. I wished I had the words to console her, but my mind was still a blank canvas. I knew that she would bounce back eventually, though. We all had our breaking points, but I was confident that Natalie had yet to reach hers. When we pulled up at my house, I gave her a quick hug across the cab and scooped up my bag to leave. "Cammy," she said, causing me to pause, with the door half open. She was staring out the window past my house at the woods, as if they were alive. "Be careful," she breathed. I stared into her eyes for a long moment before nodding. Maybe I was wrong about her reaching her breaking point. Before I could contemplate saying something in return, she forced the truck into reverse with a groan and backed out of the driveway, disappearing from sight. I hoped she would bounce back. I'd have to see if there was anything I could do to help her regain that loud, exuberant demeanor I'd come to know and love. Our teachers had been gracious to us in light of everything that had been going on, so I didn't have any homework to distract myself with when I finally made it to my room. "Has it been 2 hours yet? Has it always been 2 hours yet? What do you mean, Void? What do you mean? Do you want me to leave? Do you want me to go and stop streaming? Are we there yet? Have we finished the stream yet?" Rude. I know that's probably not what you meant, but that's kind of what it sounds like. That's the vibe. My mum wouldn't be back for another hour, so I had nothing but an empty house and my swirling thoughts to keep me company. Thoughts that were gaining strength and momentum, and would quickly turn into a raging cyclone if I didn't address them soon. "Oh no, don't leave, British Funny Lady." We do have about 5 minutes left. British Funny Lady will stay for 10 minutes more. Could there be any merit to my uncle's accusations? Could Zeke's people actually be responsible for the murders? My heart screamed no. A steady beat in my chest sang of the goodness I'd seen in his people, in Zeke himself. Surely a guy that would stop and exert some of his precious magic to help an injured bird wouldn't run around and murder innocent women in his next breath. It just didn't make any sense. Just making sure you don't lose track of time and give us a 4-hour stream. I'm surprised you would stop me from doing that, honestly. Why wouldn't you let me do that? Though I appreciate it. I do appreciate the TikTok timer, people. I have considered trying to stream longer. Because the problem with my streams is that, like, I need to end them when I end them most of the time because I need to do stuff. But if I start them earlier, I might be able to stream a little bit longer. Like, I was thinking maybe 1 stream a week. I might try to go for 3 hours to try, like, up my streaming stamina a little bit. I don't know when that'll happen, but it might happen at some point. As much as my heart said no, the more my head wondered if it wasn't a complete impossibility. The problem with your streams is that they end. Aw, you're sweet. You're sweet. They'd survived this long in the cursed woods by laying low and keeping their existence secret. What if, after all this time, the younger generation decided to relax their rules, and had become more lenient with what they believed they could get away with? They might start to stray further and further away from their community, even so far as to enter the town that had exiled their ancestors a century before. Zeke had made a bold move by coming to my house and interacting with me. Someone else in its community could have done the same thing. And if that witch had been caught performing magic, who knew what they might have done to cover their tracks? I pictured Heather standing in the woods with her hands raised, a group of leather-clad teenagers closing in on her in every angle. I saw Mrs. Carson running through the trees, gripping on some vines, before turning over to stare at Zeke, his bow and arrow aimed steadily at her chest. I shook the visions off quickly. I was letting myself get carried away. I needed to focus on the facts at hand. I thought about what Uncle Peter said in the gym, about the evil living in the forest. What exactly did he know about the tribe of witches hiding in the cursed woods? Did he know the whole story, or just the rumours about the strange lights and animals that gave the legendary forest its nickname? Yeah, start earlier, Brenya. I'll be able to start playing Minecraft with you. Yay! There isn't a cloning device, so we only get one Brenya stream a day. Yes, unfortunately you do. There is Monday where you sometimes get a familiar cat girl as well, but only one a day, yes. Otherwise I might die. If I was going to figure this all out, maybe I needed to hear the story from another perspective. Before I could convince myself it was a bad idea, I grabbed my phone and pulled up my contact list. He answered on the first ring. Hey, Cammy, is everything okay? I could easily recognize the concern in my uncle's voice. Maybe I should have been annoyed that he was the only reason that he thought the only reason I might call him was if something's wrong. But to be fair, I couldn't remember a single time I'd called him in the past. My mother had always made sure my aunt and uncle's numbers were present in my emergency contact list in case something happened, but I'd never needed to use them. It would have taken a catastrophic event for me to bother my aunt when she lived a whole state away. If I continued to think in circles without any outside advice, this could very well turn into a catastrophic event when I lost my sanity. Hey, Uncle Pete? Don't worry, everything's fine. Lie. Things couldn't be less fine at the moment. Hopefully he couldn't hear that in my voice. I was just calling to ask you something. My uncle's voice brightened after learning I wasn't in trouble. Sure, do you want me to come over? I could be there in a few minutes. There was a metallic jingle on the other line, as if he was already grabbing his keys. He is so eager. I don't like it. No, that won't be necessary, I said quickly. My mum will be home in a bit. I was hoping just to talk. Perhaps I should have just texted him. I hated the awkwardness of phone conversations, but I had a feeling if I'd sent him a message asking him to spill everything he knew about the cursed woods, he would show up at my house and demand to know why, with my mediocre lying skills. It was in my best interest to have the conversation over the phone where he couldn't see my face twitch. Sure, hun. You know you can talk to me about anything. I flashed back to our meeting in his office, when he encouraged me to talk to him any time I needed to talk. I wondered if he was remembering the same thing. It's about the assembly we had earlier. I paced the length of my room, a habit I had no doubt picked up from my mum. He said something about the cursed woods, about something evil in it. I bit my lip, letting him read the question in my silence. My room wasn't big enough for this kind of pacing. I did, my uncle said slowly, his voice changing again to be deep and serious. There are a lot of things you don't know about this town, Cammy. Things we keep hidden from outsiders. He paused again, and I could hear his breath becoming unsteady over the line. Are you sure you don't want me to come over? I don't know if this will be easy to discuss over the phone. I shook my head, then remembered he couldn't see the gesture. I sighed and focused on keeping my voice even and convincing. No, Uncle Peter, I just want to understand. Why can't I go into the cursed woods? Tell me what you know about the witches. I wanted to scream. I waited in silence, trying to regain my impatience. Trying to rein my impatience, not to regain it. My uncle breathed deeply, several times before responding. If I tell you this, you have to promise to keep the information to yourself. I don't want you texting any of your friends from Plainfield or making a post on Twitter or whatever. I believe it's called X now, old man. But no, we still call it Twitter. I rolled my eyes. Because you're my niece, and because you're a resident of this town now, I'll tell you the history of Green Peaks, but be warned, it isn't pretty. I held my breath and gave him the floor to go on. I imagined him licking his lips and wondered if his face resembled Jason's just before describing the bizarre occurrences around the cursed woods. And before he starts his speech, we will unfortunately have to end the stream there. Thank you everyone for coming! I need to take a drink. Oh my god. I made a horrible mistake yesterday of not hydrating enough. And unfortunately, I ended up with a headache, and I'm like recovering from it now. Like, I have been downing bottles of water all day to rehydrate myself. Because I'm a dum-dum who did not drink enough yesterday. But that's okay. My 6th famous Sylvester Stallone movie. Oh, that's exciting! We're now 61%. We're making some good progress on this book. We really are. I reckon 3 more streams? 3 more streams, I reckon. It's exciting. So now we're gonna hear the same story. Me water bottle. Me bottle of water. Yeah. Me bottle of water. Yeah. So next stream we will find out. Oh, let me skip the ads for you. No, we're doing the wind down. We don't need your adverts. It's time for me to advertise now. Yeah. So next stream we'll find out what the town thinks. What triggered the town's attack of the witches? Was it pure fear or did something actually happen? We'll find out next time. For now, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you to everyone who lurked. Thank you to anyone who watches the VOD. Thank you, YouTube, and thank you, Twitch viewers. We appreciate both of you. We appreciate them all. If you have not already, I would also appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to support me in the way with the Mun-Muns, you can give me the Mun-Muns by clicking the links below that lead to my Kofi, where you can just give me Mun-Muns for no reason. My Patreon, where you can give me Mun-Muns for monthly Patreon/member streams, and short stories every month. Yeah! And there's also my website where you can give me the Mun-Muns for various merchandise, which includes t-shirts, bookmarks, books I have written, and more. You should check them all out. Click all the things. Click all the things down there. There's so many buttons and you should click them all. There's also a link to purchase this book that I have been reading. So if you really can't wait till next week, you can go read it yourself. But other than that, go pre-order Moon Girl 6 chat. She's releasing it sometime this year. Yeah, but the pre-order's not up, so you can't pre-order it. Yes. I will be back tomorrow. And we'll be Minecrafting again tomorrow. I'm gonna do my best to get that mushroom to my house. I don't know where it's gonna live. And I don't know why I really want it in my life, but that's the mission I've set myself. And that's what we're doing. So that's the, or am I gonna just make a mushroom tower? I don't know. There's so much I want to do in that game. God damn. Minecraft's hard in its own weird way because you're like, I want to do all the things. But then you have to like order which way you do it. And then I get distracted by things. And anyway, that's tomorrow me's problem. Today's me's problem is going to bed. And thanking you all for coming. I had fun. I hope you had fun. This has been Brandy Rose Smith, Life in the Forbidden Library. Goodbye.